Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته وكل عام وأنتم بخير. قبل تفاصيل هذه العناوين.
Peace and blessing be upon you. Muslims from a number of Islam and Arab countries are celebrating the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. In the Palestinian territories, residents of Gaza expressed their happiness about the withdrawal of the Israeli occupation. Palestinians in Khan Yunis said that Ramadan is different than previous years because it comes after the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip.
يأتي بعد انسحاب القوات الإسرائيلية من القطاع. في الوقت نفسه أعرب سكان مدينة الخليل.
Meanwhile, residents of Khalil in the West Bank expressed their dissatisfaction over the movement restrictions imposed by renewed Israeli measures. In Iraq, Sunni Muslims began the month of Ramadan amidst security deterioration. Many expressed their hope that the situation will improve during this month.
خلال هذا الشهر. وفي أول أيام شهر رمضان المبارك شنت القوات الأمريكية عمليتين عسكريتين ضد المسلحين.
In the first days of the blessed month of Ramadan, the U.S. forces carried out two military operations against armed fighters in the Sunni Anbar province in western Iraq, with the participation of nearly 4,500 soldiers. 3 people were killed, among them 2 Iraqi soldiers and 6 others who were injured in a booby-trapped car driven by a suicide bomber at a checkpoint in the highly fortified Green Zone in the center of the capital of Baghdad. The Iraqi police said that the booby-trapped car entered the Green Zone, within which are the American and British embassies, as well as the Iraqi government headquarters. The car came in through the entrance normally used by workers and the press, and exploded while it was being searched at the first checkpoint inside the Green Zone among a convoy of other unidentified cars.
داخل المنطقة الخضراء ضمن قافلة سيارات أخرى لم تعرف هويتها.
أطلقت السلطات العراقية سراح مواطن بريطاني كان قد اعتقله حرس الحدود قرب الحدود العراقية السعودية.
Iraqi authorities freed a British citizen who was arrested by border guards near the Iraqi-Saudi borders, according to an Iraqi security official. An official spokesman for the Central Border Guard forces from the holy city of Najaf announced the arrest of a group of what he called terrorists, including a British citizen in the Madloum area near the Iraqi-Saudi border. He confirmed that the group also possessed machine guns, a video camera, a Thuraya cell phone, and a satellite global positioning system. For more information, we have with us on the phone our correspondent Raji Nasser. Raji, do you have any information about the identity of the British citizen, and also what are the implications of his presence among the group that he was arrested with by the Iraqi authorities?
Yes, the British citizen is an engineer named Colin Peter. He says that he's a civil engineer who is working on a water network at the Peabody military base. He claims that the group he was arrested with was a private group who was protecting him and who are working for a private office called the Assad Babel office.
خاصة لحمايته تابعة لمكتب حماية خاص يدعى مكتب أسد بابل.
They had 3 cars. 2 had Basra license plate numbers and the other had Najaf plates. As you know, the British citizen was released by the order of the investigative judge from a court in Najaf. His order was immediately implemented after it was issued. However, based on the information provided by the Najaf border police about the time and place of the arrest, as well as the items found with the British citizen, leave many questions unanswered, especially about the reasons why this British citizen was released so quickly, particularly in light of the fact that police found pictures of explosive devices and explosives on his personal computer. Also, they arrested him at 11 o'clock at night in a desert area. As you know, at this late hour, no Iraqis go out in their cars, even in the outskirts of the cities. So how can a foreigner, a British citizen, go out into the desert at this time of night carrying such equipment?
لا يجرؤ أحد من العراقيين على الخروج بسيارته حتى في أطراف المدن، فكيف الحال مع شخص أجنبي بريطاني في منطقة صحراوية وفي مثل هذه الساعة من الليل وبما يحمل من معدات.
انفجرت سيارة مفخخة في منطقة
A booby-trapped car driven by a criminal terrorist exploded in the Karadat Mariam area in Baghdad, causing casualties among civilians. The attack also caused major damage to a number of surrounding cars and houses.
البنايات المحيطة بمكان الحادث.
A booby-trapped car exploded in Baghdad, killing and wounding a number of civilians.
موقعة عدد من الشهداء والجرحى في صفوف المواطنين الأبرياء.
في الساعة 1:30 ظهرا بعد سيارة أوميجا حمراء اللون.
At 1:30 p.m., a man was driving a red Omega vehicle, almost hitting a child. He was in pursuit of a Land Cruiser. As he got to the security building at one of the palaces, he detonated it.
لما وصلت إلى المركز مال الحماية مال القصر بعدت إلى الانفجار.
I was walking home when I saw a red car passing quickly. A police officer tried to stop him, but the driver continued going fast. As he got to the intersection, the police ordered him to stop, but he blew up his car.
بضعة أيام تفصل العراقيين عن أهم استحقاق.
The Iraqi people are just a few days away from the referendum on the draft constitution. Consequently, terrorists are escalating their criminal activities to hamper the road to peace. Furthermore, they are trying desperately to cover up their overwhelming defeat by the Iraqi armed forces who cracked down on them and dismantled most of their terror networks. On another related development, a suicide bomber struck the town of Kirkuk, targeting a police vehicle, killing 2 police officers and wounding 3 others.
وفي الموصل أطلق مجرمون النار من سيارة مسرعة على العضوي في مجلس محافظة نينوى.
In the town of Mosul, a group of armed criminals opened fire on the car of Nafia Abed Al-Aziz, a member of Al-Nuini local municipality, killing her and her son. In the town of Biji, a bomb was detonated, targeting a convoy of multinational forces, burning a fuel tank. According to a multinational forces source, 5 soldiers were killed in the operation against terrorists west of Iraq.
عمليات تطهير غربي العراق من الإرهابيين وإطلاق نار شمالي بغداد.
For the second consecutive day, the Moroccan Royal Guards continued to raid and bomb the jungles of Restegordo in El Nathur, where African undocumented immigrants are hiding and training to cross the Moroccan-Spanish border.
These children had no choice over their fate because their childhood had been taken away from them. They are facing the unknown as their parents wait for an opportunity to cross into Spain. However, the wait is over as the Moroccan Royal Guard raided the area, arresting dozens of undocumented immigrants after a hot pursuit in the jungle of Restegordo.
I spent 6 months in this jungle waiting for an opportunity to cross the border into the town of Layla. We are living a harsh life here. We have nothing left except the dream to go to Spain. As you see, I cannot even seek medical help for my swollen feet. I do not have anything to eat.
هذه العملية التمشيطية التي تستمر لليوم الثاني على التوالي والتي يقوم بها الدرك الملكي والقوات المساعدة.
The Moroccan Royal Guard targeted all hideouts of the undocumented immigrants and uncovered a number of training grounds where the immigrants learn ways of how to cross the border by climbing the fortified fences.
على تسلق الأسلاك الشائكة. سنعاود محاولة التسلل إلى أوروبا كلما.
We will try to cross to Europe every time we have the opportunity. We will not go back to our countries where there are only civil wars and starvations. We do not have work opportunities or major companies that will employ us. There are only poverty and starvation. We may be bothering you in Morocco, but we have the dream to migrate to Europe.
فالأمل الوحيد لدينا هو الهجرة نحو أوروبا. حلم الهجرة نحو الضفة الأخرى من المتوسط.
The dream to immigrate to Europe came to an end for the 56 Africans who were arrested by the Moroccan Royal Guards and the armed forces. Meanwhile, the Spanish security forces intensified their security presence along the border and around the city of Lilia.
التي تفصل ليليا المحتلة.
The European Union urged Morocco to resume its talks with Brussels regarding their agreement, which calls for taking back undocumented African immigrants by the end of November 2005. This comes in the wake of a number of tragic incidents that took place in the border cities of Ceuta and Laila. The Moroccan and Spanish authorities intensified their security presence and patrol along their borders to stop any further illegal crossing by undocumented immigrants. The Moroccan authority launched a number of raids arresting many undocumented immigrants. However, the situation is far from being contained. A more humane and comprehensive campaign is needed to put an end to this phenomena of illegal immigration. At these rugged hills, northern Morocco, the dream of undocumented African immigrants comes to an end as they are faced with thousands of kilometers of fortified fences. Thousands of African immigrants walk for many months, passing through dozens of mountains, valleys and hills to reach the so-called Promised Land that is located on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea, namely the European paradise. However, the long wait and harsh living conditions at the border pushed hundreds of immigrants in a desperate move to storm the two fortified fences that separate Morocco from the two Spanish-occupied towns of Ceuta and Laila, using old-fashioned ladders in climbing up the high fences. During the ordeal, 5 were killed, 3 on the Moroccan side and 2 on the Spanish side, and 50 others were wounded. Both countries blame one another for the incident.
على الجانب الإسباني و3 على الجانب المغربي، فيما أصيب أكثر من 50 آخرين بجروح وسط تبادل للاتهامات بين الطرفين عن مسؤولية ما وقع.
The Spanish security and border patrol officers attacked us at both sides of the separation fence, but I was able to get away.
الحادث وما تبعه من تداعيات أرخى بظلاله على قمة مغربية إسبانية تزامن انعقادها في مدينة إشبيلية عاصمة إقليم الأندلس، وكاد يصيب العلاقات المتجددة بين الرباط ومدريد بالبرود. وقد قرر الطرفان ضمن
The incident and the volatile situation on the border comes as the Spanish-Moroccan summit is about to be held at the Andalus province capital city of Ashbilia. But following this incident, improving bilateral relations is at stake. Meanwhile, both countries pledged to increase their security presence and patrol along their borders. The Spanish authority deployed 320 soldiers at the border cities of Ceuta and Laila to fulfill their commitment, while Rabat reinforced security at their border by deploying 1,600 soldiers to back up local authorities there. The undocumented immigrants who made it to the other side of the border were caught and taken to detention centers, where they are to be deported to their countries of origin, while in Spanish custody, a small number of them might be eligible to adjust their immigration status. Meanwhile, the majority of the immigrants waiting at the Moroccan side vowed to come back to Europe.
فيفكرون منذ الآن في تكرار المحاولة حتى لا يظل مصيرهم معلقا تتقاذفه الأهواء متأرجحا بين الضرورة الأمنية والواجب الإنساني.
I'm okay now. If I'd stayed in Cameroon, I'm not sure whether or not I would be alive.
In assessing the situation, both the Moroccan and Spanish officials must not only focus on their own economic and social interests, they also must give consideration to the immigrants' safety by balancing between their choices of securing the border and allowing the immigrants to cross over to Spain for a better life, because poor Africans will continue to do their best to immigrate to Europe, a continent that is perceived by them as paradise.
الصحافة الإسرائيلية دخلت اليوم بشكل مباشر على خط الأحداث سواء في
An Israeli newspaper published a report directly linked to the unfolding events in Syria and Lebanon, revealing that the United States had consulted with Israel on changing the regime in Syria. This paper also reported on the international forces in southern Lebanon, saying that the cooperation between these forces and Hezbollah has prevented Israel from achieving its goals.
قيام هذه الأخيرة بعملها. ركزت الصحف الإسرائيلية في أعدادها الصادرة اليوم على مسألة الحكم في سوريا وكيفية التعاطي معه، وذكرت صحيفة هآرتس الإسرائيلية نقلا
An Israeli newspaper published a report on the Syrian regime and how to deal with it. The Israeli Haaretz newspaper reported that a government source said that the United States had consulted with Israeli officials about the possibility of a regime change in Syria and replacing President Bashar al-Assad. The newspaper reported that the Americans concluded that Israel would rather have the weakened President Assad remain in power rather than changing his regime. According to Haaretz, Israeli officials justified this position, assuming that the results of the UN investigation into the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri will be very embarrassing to President Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon told the same newspaper that he believes that the Syrians have not lost hope in controlling Lebanon and that Syria is doing this through Hezbollah in cooperation with the Iranians. Sharon stressed that the Syrians are involved in training terrorists who are infiltrating into Iraq, once again rejecting any resumption of peace negotiations with Damascus, justifying this by saying that Israel should not take any measures that will obstruct American efforts to place pressure on Syria. This comes at a time when an official from the Israeli Prime Minister's office confirmed that consultations are continuing with the Americans regarding the Syrian file. He confirmed that the Syrian file is considered a priority in the joint agendas between the two countries because Syria is involved in supporting what he described as Palestinian terrorists. Meanwhile, on the issue of Lebanon, the Israeli Ma'arab newspaper quoted a security official as saying that the cooperation between Hezbollah and international peacekeeping forces in southern Lebanon has led to a failure of these forces in protecting security at the borders. The newspaper said that the Hebrew state would like to have a direct relationship with the Lebanese army to manage their joint borders without the mediation of UNIFIL, and that Israel is working towards this goal.
المشتركة من دون وساطة اليونيفيل وأن إسرائيل تعمل لتحقيق هذا الهدف.
Defense Minister Shaul Mofaz today said that U.S. pressure on Damascus may bring about a dramatic change in Syrian government. In an interview with Israel Radio, Mofaz said that Syria's involvement in the assassination of former Lebanese President Rafiq Hariri and its support of Iraqi rebels operating from within its territory will bring about U.S. actions that may overthrow Bashar Assad's regime. Mofaz said, quote, the U.S. will take actions against Syria, beginning with economic sanctions and moving on to others, that will make it clear to the Syrians that their policies do not comply with UN decisions. Mofaz also commented on yesterday's clashes between Palestinian Authority police officers and Hamas gunmen, saying it was an isolated incident. The defense minister reiterated Israel's position that Hamas should not be allowed to participate in Palestinian elections until it is disarmed. An IDF soldier was lightly wounded this morning when she was stabbed by a Palestinian terrorist at the Hawara checkpost near Nablus. Soldiers at the site killed the knife-brandishing Palestinian woman attacker, identified as Haifa Khandia. The 30-year-old Khandia, who was wearing a long Islamic dress, charged the female soldier and slashed her in the face. A second soldier grabbed the knife and threw it to the side. The mother of 5, who relatives said was mentally ill, was shot while trying to escape. No terrorist group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The incident comes as thousands of police officers went on alert throughout the country yesterday for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. The alert will extend throughout the month due to fears that Palestinians may attempt to carry out further terror attacks during the holiday season. 150,000 babies. That's the astounding number of newborns Israeli welcomed into the population during the past Hebrew year. The number includes some 2,600 twins. That's 1,200 more children than last year. Statistics released ahead of the New Year 5766 show the population of the State of Israel now stands at nearly 7 million people. Almost 80% are Jewish, while the remaining 20% are Muslims or Christians. The country is getting increasingly crowded, though. Israel boasts some 300 people to each square kilometer of land. In Slovenia, a country roughly the same size as Israel, there are less than 100 persons on the same amount of land. That said, 19,000 immigrants came to make a new home here, and Israel's door is always open for future Aliyah. Meanwhile, the second night of Rosh Hashanah, or the Jewish New Year, is celebrated by Jewish communities throughout the world. We bring you a look at one unique but often overlooked group, the Jews of Finland. Abiya's Denizin was in the northern country and brings us a look at Finnish Jewry, which is struggling with a 95% intermarriage rate.
Breakfast at Helsinki's only Jewish school. Besides Finnish, some 8 other languages are spoken here, the most predominant being Hebrew, followed by Russian. The country's tiny community of 1,500 Jews was bolstered in recent years by former residents of the Soviet Union and Israelis who married Finn nationals. There's virtually no anti-Semitism in Finland, and the community is a prosperous one. Situated just a short walk away from the Jewish school is the Finnish Parliament, which houses the office of veteran Finnish MP Ben Zyskind. Zyskind, who is openly Jewish and has been an elected member of the House since 1979, says that his Jewishness has never been a problem in Finnish politics.
I get my votes from normal Finns, but everyone in Finland knows that I'm a Jew, so I think it's quite positive that they vote on me and it's not bothering them that I'm a Jew.
Alongside the school in the same central Helsinki compound is the impressive 100-year-old synagogue, which is currently undergoing thorough restoration. The Orthodox stream of Judaism is practiced in Helsinki, despite the fact that the community has an over 95% rate of mixed marriages. Community officials said the non-Jewish spouses usually agree to convert, or at least to identify with the Jewish side of the family. The secret, they said, is education.
Although most of the families are so-called intermarried families, most of the children attend the kindergarten and the Jewish school, which means that there is a continuation of the Jewish education, and this is how really we survive at the moment. They are very important institutions in our community.
On Fridays, after daily prayers at school, the children hold the traditional Kabbalat Shabbat ceremony for the Sabbath. In the summer months here, in the land of the midnight sun, Shabbat comes in at a time when Jews in other countries are already fast asleep. Community leaders hope that if their fight against assimilation is successful, the sun will never set on this unique congregation. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
Of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Thanks for joining us. This is World News on Ramadan Network. Today with me, Mariam Zolghadr. The new moon heralding the month of Ramadan was sighted in many parts of Iran, as well as some other Islamic countries such as Malaysia and Tunisia Tuesday evening. Therefore, Wednesday was declared as the first day of the holiest month, during which the faithful fast from dawn to dusk. This comes while Saudi Arabia and other Persian Gulf states, Algeria, and the Central Asian countries celebrated the start of the fasting month, but Pakistan will usher in Ramadan on Thursday. I would like to extend congratulations both on behalf of myself and my colleagues at Gen English News Desk. Marking the 6th day of the National Police Week, President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad attended a commencement ceremony on Tuesday for cadets at the Police Academy in Tehran. In an address to the ceremony, the president urged the police force to try its best to eliminate social insecurity. The president said efforts to halt the illegal trade in drugs and goods will give a new lease of life to both national economy and human resources of the country. He said law enforcement forces need to establish a closer bond with members of the public to win them over and successfully carry out their responsibilities. Later on, the select units of the force hit the parade ground in front of the president. Foreign Ministry spokesman Hamid Safi says Tehran would sit at a negotiating table with Europe only if there are no preconditions. Safi told the weekly news conference on Tuesday political considerations play a significant role in economic ties with other countries and that Tehran will use all means available, including economic tools, to serve its national interests. Making a rash decision on the issue is not an option, though. Safi's remarks came in reaction to a call on Monday by EU foreign ministers who had urged Tehran to fully suspend its nuclear fuel cycle and sit at a negotiating table with the EU Big Three. Foreign Minister Manucheh Mottaki on Tuesday arrived in the Bahraini capital of Manama on the second leg of a regional tour, which has already taken him to Kuwait. The top Iranian diplomat is to take up regional and international developments, as well as bilateral issues with Bahraini officials. Before leaving Kuwait, Mottaki told reporters his talks with Kuwaiti officials were fruitful, adding Tehran and Kuwait had agreed to set up a joint commission co-chaired by foreign ministers of both countries to give fresh impetus to mutual economic cooperation.
The Sultanate today joined other Arab countries in marking the Arab Housing Day. It came at a time when numerous achievements in housing and development are realized. The Arab countries took the slogan, "Housing is an ideal solution for a better life," to celebrate the day, which also coincides with World Housing Day. The Sultanate, in joining the Arab and world countries, reflects its experiment in the housing sector, which is characterized by striking a balance between traditional and modern architecture. The sector during recent years attracts attention from the government of the Sultanate in social and economic perspective, which reflected the splendid Omani housing engineering planning. The government also paid attention in supporting social housing programs for limited income sectors of the society by supplying necessary finance in order for them to lead a decent life. To achieve that, it follows the programs of social houses, assistance and housing loans. Last year, 750 housing units were approved for all regions of the Sultanate, while currently more than 360 housing units are being implemented in fulfilling the royal grant from His Majesty Sultan Qaboos in a number of regions and governorates. The number of benefiting families from the housing assistance during the past 3 years were 650 families, while the number of families benefited from soft housing loan programs in the year 2004 and 2005 were 370 Omani families. On the occasion, the Ministry of Housing, Electricity and Water signed an agreement with Oman LNG to construct 50 housing units to those eligible in various regions and wilayas and governorates of the Sultanate, in accordance with a timetable taken into consideration the priorities and necessities of the families. It was signed by His Excellency Saif bin Mohammed al-Shabibi, Under Secretary of Housing at the Ministry of Housing, Electricity and Water. He made a statement in which he said providing these housing units comes from the principles of social solidarity, and he thanked the contribution of the Oman LNG in this regard. In addition to that, the government of the Sultanate grants residential plots to the citizens, taking into consideration the supply of basic services of electricity, water, communications and roads.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.